In this video I shall discuss very briefly the public distribution system that is for paddy and wheat in India. So my focus shall be on these three issues: the annual production, how the government procures it, the buffer stock, and the central and state pool concepts within the government procurement and the financials involved. So let me start with the first thing, the annual production. The annual production for both paddy and wheat has been increasing. As far as paddy is concerned, we have both Kharif and Rabi. In 2020, this Kharif paddy is around 100 million tons and the Rabi is around 20 million tons. So we have an overall production of 120 million tons, something which was 90 million tons in 2005. Similarly, for wheat, it's grown only in the Rabi season, and in the Rabi season in 2005 the production was roughly 60 million tons, and now the production in 2020 has been around 110 million tons. So it is still less than paddy, but then if you see the rate at which wheat is growing in terms of its production, very soon it will overtake paddy if the trend continues. And that tells a lot about the eating habits, the cultivating priorities, everything. So this is the production aspect. How much does government procure? Let me tell you that from this production, government procures more than 50%, maybe 60 or 70% at least. Because, let me tell you, the government has a huge food security program called the National Food Security Act, which came into existence in 2013. But even before this you had this public distribution system. Now, it was for a variety of scarce products, but in the 1960s, during the food crisis, the focus on paddy and wheat, that is the food grains, increased, and still the focus is on these food grains. And till 1997, everything was done by the Food Corporation of India. What do I mean everything? So this is the farmer, this is the government, and this is the consumer of food grains, you, me, everyone. So the farmer will sell to the government at a certain price called the MSP, that is known. The government will incur some logistics cost and will finally sell to the consumer at a certain price. This entire thing on behalf of the government is done by the FCI. This was the trend till 1997, and this was called the Centralized Procurement. Okay, so if you see, I have mentioned about Centralized Procurement. But after 1997, the state government agencies were involved. Now let me tell you that even in the Centralized Procurement, not everything was done by FCI. Some of the procurement was done by the state government agencies. For example, in West Bengal we have the Food and Supplies Department. So some procurement was done by the state government agencies, but then it was handed over to the FCI, and then the FCI finally gave it to the consumers. So ultimately the state government agency was just acting as an agency of the FCI. This was the trend till 1997, centralized procurement. But the need was felt that the state government agencies can do a lot of things at the local level. They can even store the food grains, they can even sell it to the consumer at the local level. Okay, so after 1997, program called the Decentralized Procurement Scheme was launched. Now let me tell you that within the National Food Security Act, the government ensures and assures 75% of the rural population of India and 50% of the urban population of India to be covered under this. and the beneficiaries are selected based on the SECC data, and the quota of food grains is selected based on their deprivation condition. So you can understand that a majority of the Indian population is covered under NFSA. Those who are not covered may be covered by the state government agencies. So the state government agencies may cover the rest of them. So in West Bengal, there is a scheme called Khadya Sathi, under which all the remaining people are covered and 100% population coverage is ensured. So what happens in this decentralized procurement scheme? In this decentralized procurement scheme, there will be a certain quota of the FCA, there will be a certain quota of the NFSA that the FCI will cater to. That is, the FCI will buy it from the farmer and will sell it to the consumer. Of course, it will sell through the fair price shop, which is run by the state government. But then comes the state government agency. The state government agency will buy some amount from the farmer on behalf of the FCI and under the NFSA. But at the same time, the state government agency will also buy from the farmer under its own scheme, for example the Khadya Sathi scheme in West Bengal, and then it will sell it to the consumer. So this thing is ensured, and this entire thing is the decentralized procurement, although still the majority is being covered under NFSA. Majority is still being covered under NFSA. These two. Only the remaining people are covered under the state government schemes if the state government makes such a scheme. Okay. So I've discussed about, and this NFSA pool is known as the central pool. So the central pool is not just filled up by the FCI but also the state government agencies. But the state pool is only filled up by the state government agencies. So this was a decentralized procurement. Economic cost, CIP and subsidy. Well, let me discuss. Now this is a very important thing. The government buys from the farmer at the MSP, and then there is some transport cost, there is some storage cost. Of course, the FCI or the state government agencies store in their godowns, and the various distribution costs, labor costs, everything combined together is the economic cost to FCI in case of NFSA, because in case of NFSA, even if the state government agency does the job for FCI, it is reimbursed by FCI. So the economic cost is borne by FCI, the central government, or in the case of the state government schemes, it is borne by the state government. For the case of wheat, the MSP is roughly 20 rupees per kg, I think, and rice, I think it is 19 rupees per kg. Not exactly, these are rough figures, but then if you add all of these, the economic cost in the case of wheat will come to be roughly 37 rupees per kg. I think 27 rupees per kg. And in the case of rice, it comes out to be 37 rupees per kg. It is more in the case of rice or paddy. And this is also homework for you. Try to find out why. But if you go to the market price, the market price of wheat might be say 18 rupees per kg. Market price of paddy might be say 25 rupees per kg. You understand? So this is definitely more than the market price. If the government even sells it in the market, no one will buy it. But the government sells it at something called the central issue price through the fair price shops. For wheat, it is 2 per kg under the NFSA, and for paddy, it is 3 rupees per kg. But after the COVID-19 pandemic, I'm not sure, it is probably at least in a number of state government schemes, it is done free of cost. So what is the economic cost? The economic cost is this, the central issue price is this. So if I want to calculate the subsidy, it is equal to this economic cost minus the central issue price. So it has costed the government 37 rupees for rice, but it is selling it at 3 rupees. So 34 rupees per kg is borne by the government as subsidy for paddy. Similarly, you can calculate for wheat. Into the number of kgs sold in 1 year, that subsidy bill comes out to be roughly rupees 2 lakh crore for the central government, and that is roughly 97% of the total budgetary allocation for the Ministry of Food and Public Distribution in the central government. And this is the biggest subsidy that is there in India, and it is followed by fuel and fertilizer subsidies. So this was the economics. I think I missed one thing, and that is buffer stock. So when I'm talking about buffer stock, it is the buffer that a country should maintain for any particular food grain. So for paddy, the government should maintain a certain buffer. I have already told that 120 million tons of paddy is produced every year, and you have to note that most of the paddy is produced in the Kharif season. So it is during November, December, January, in these months that a lot of procurement will happen for paddy. So if the buffer of paddy is like this, in these months it will increase like this. So if the buffer is say 30 million tons in the summer months, during the winter months the buffer will increase to 80 million tons. This is the mandated thing. But what do we see? We see that in this period the actual buffer becomes about 150 million tons. Okay. Similarly, in the case of wheat, in the months of April, May, June, when the harvesting of rabi wheat happens, the buffer stock swells, and it is mandated around 80 million tons. But it is seen that the buffer stock becomes 150, 160 million tons, 2-3 times more than what is required. So first concept is that the buffer stock is not a fixed quantity. The mandated buffer stock is a variable quantity depending on the month of the year. But whatever be that value, what is practically seen is 2 to 3 times, and because of this huge storage, a lot of food grains are even destroyed. So the demand is not so much. In fact, there is one variety of paddy called parboiled rice, in which, so before I actually go into discussing this, let me very quickly say that in the case of paddy, the farmers come to the state government agency or the FCI, procures it, and then this state government agency gives it to the mill. This rice mill is to convert this paddy to rice, and there is a criteria that if you take 100 kg of paddy, you have to give 68 kg of rice, and then you will get some commission. So paddy to rice. Now even before going to the mill, if you boil the paddy, then after milling, the rice is of a slightly better quality, and it is called parboiled rice. Some states produce it. I think Telangana is the biggest producer, but the demand is not so much, and therefore there was this hue and cry as to why the government is not procuring parboiled rice, because the demand is less. So at one end we have to maintain buffer stock, and the buffer stock is too much. At the other end we have this demand for food grains also there. We have seen this during the COVID-19 pandemic. A proper logistical arrangement has to be ensured so that there is sufficient buffer stock but not too much. That is one very important thing. Apart from this thing, another thing is fortification of paddy, fortification of rice. So these rice mills are asked to add certain minerals such as iron and some other minerals for fortified rice. So the rice mills have to see their own profitability, and they are mostly private, and This entire process is sometimes bypassed by giving it to the private players. And by the way, the government procures it from the farmer, and in some cases, for example in Punjab, there are some middlemen called artiyas, so they may procure it from them also, as per the state government acts. That thing is mandated, that thing is allowed. So this is the basic thing I wanted to discuss, these concepts in this video, which I have discussed. And there is a MSP for other items as well, pulses, oilseeds also, but it is not practically, it is not maintained. It is that MSP regime is not maintained that well, but for paddy and wheat it is maintained very religiously, and therefore it is very crucial. At the same time, I want to say that MSP concept is not legal. It is a tradition that has been going on. The government in the agricultural ministry website gives out the list of MSP before the sowing of the seed. The MSP for that season is released based on the recommendations of the CSCP, but that statutory backing is not there for MSP, and it is there that the MSP should be greater than the market price. At least that is a thumb rule. Otherwise the farmers will not be able to get a good bargain. And the central issue price should also be less than or equal to the MSP. That concept is also there, but usually it is 2 or 3 rupees, and during the COVID-19 pandemic we have seen it went to 0 rupees. So these are the concepts, technical concepts of PDS. Keep watching.